Did it ever bother you personally? Did you ever like, I don't know, I don't want to say disgruntled, but did it ever bother you that you'd go to work, you were always in shape, you were always everything you did was great. You're very reliable, all the good stuff about you. Did it ever piss you off that they bring someone in and they put them on higher up on the card than you? That bother you?
No, we I had a job. I talked to Vince, because I was upset, and I would tell Vince, I don't think you're using me to the best of, I think I got so much to offer, and I don't think you're taking advantage of it. And he would say, Tito, he showed me a scale from the bottom. He says, you never, then he walked up to the middle of the scale. He says, you're always from the middle to the top. You're in the middle for a while, because you're such a good worker that you can get guys over, and then I give you a little push, and you get over. I bring you to the top and keep you in the top for a while, and then you come down to the middle. You never go below the middle, and it made sense. And I was in the WWF longer than anybody else when I left. Me and Hulk Hogan were the only wrestlers who were on WrestleManias 1 through 9, and I got to the WWF before Hulk Hogan. So I was in the WWF longer than anybody else at the time that I left. So, I mean, it was a good career. Could I have made more money? Yes. Could I have had better positions? Yes. But it wasn't my choice.
Hard to argue with that answer, right? That's a perfect. I bet you Vince has a lot of perfect answers that's hard to argue with, right?
Yes, he does.
Before we go, Luke, can you talk to me about your relationship with Vince? Like, how did he treat you guys? What do you have to say about Vince McMahon?
Everybody knocks Vince. Everybody knocks him. Not everybody, but a lot of people, because they think when they get told to leave, they think they should be there for good. He keeps the strong baby faces, and he has to move heels through the place, just like any territory. You have the baby face is the one that the people want to see win all the time, but you beat them up on that, and then they come out on top. And that's why you feed heels through territories. I booked for 14 years of my life, booking promotions, 7 days a week and writing TVs. And that's what I did. Feed, pick us a couple of baby faces. And that's why, too, we never had long stays in the place, even when I was booking, except for the last place when I was there 7 years. But I wasn't working for IWA in Puerto Rico. But the rest of the places, we were there for a year and a half, and we left because, we kept the strong baby faces. And I couldn't, getting back to Vince thing, he looked after us, you know what I mean? He let me use two. I opened two restaurants. He gave us a name, and the restaurants were Bushwacker Steakhouse, and then I had a bungee, the Bushwacker bungee, and then I had that on the water down in Florida, and the things he let it, and he never, I just called him up and asked him, and that, and he says, let my lawyer know, and blah, blah, blah. And the lawyer said, look, it's all good. Vince gave you the nod. You're all good. And now, the guys can't use their names or anything. So when they leave the company in the 90s, if you left and you try to use use your name, you had to change it.
Right.
Yeah, we never did. And that was his name. So I could never complain about him. And if it wasn't for Vince, I wouldn't be running around the country. I'm working still 3 to 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weekends every month around this country, as a bushwhacker. Because that gimmick on television got over nationally, and no, not nationally, internationally. And if you go on Peacock, you can still watch all that classic era.
What was your interactions with Vince like during his time? You're his top team. Do you talk to him frequently? Do you see him at TVs?
We see him at TVs. We went a couple times to the office, but we really didn't enjoy that. I didn't like to. We wanted to let our work, our performance speak for our ability. And I think he recognized that and appreciated it. We weren't guys that would call the office. We weren't guys that would check in daily. They knew where we were, so if they needed to reach us, they could give a message to the agent. He could tell us, and we'd get back in touch with him. But we had a good relationship. It was a business relationship. You have to realize that it is a business. If it's friendship as well, that's good. But you're an employee. He's the employer. As long as we do our job and he makes the commitment to make the payment and do the push, we're okay.
I call Vince's room the next morning, first thing in the morning, and he's eating breakfast and whatever. Anyway, that phone call did not go well. And but yeah, that was one of those instances where Brett gave me some advice that was just not really good advice. And I think at the end of the conversation with Vince, he goes, just show up like you always do with a smile on your face and do your job. And at that point, I had nothing else to say because I had just signed a 1-year rollover. I had no bargaining position. I mean, I was Duke the Dumpster, opening to mid-card guy, and there was nothing else I could say. So I had to show up and do my job. But that was one of those instances. Huh?
How big was the smile on your face when you saw Vince?
The next day when I woke up.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
He was walking in with Briscoe. I think I shook his hand. I go, hey, Vince.
You know, I'm sitting at home and I get a phone call and my wife comes in and she goes, it's Vince McMahon on the phone. And here I'm sitting on the toilet. I'm going, yeah, sure, whatever. Sure. Yeah, I'm going, yes, Chaz, what's up? He's like, Glenn, Vince McMahon. What are you doing? I said, nothing, just sitting here, Vince. What's up? He's like, I came up with this idea. I want to call you guys the Flying Nuns. Great idea. It's a great idea. Can't wait for you guys to see it. So then he says, I need you guys to come up to New York to get sized for these costumes and everything else. So we're going, Flying, what the hell is this? So we thought he was changing our gimmick and everything else. So here, the whole concept behind the Flying Nuns. Everybody gets this wrong. We were the Headbangers first. We started as the Headbangers. He wanted to turn us into these Flying Nuns. The concept behind it was going to be, these guys are so crazy. They don't care what they wear. They wear skirts. They wear nun outfits. They don't care. So we went up and he's like, you remember Sally Fields in the Flying Nun? And we're like, yeah. He's like, and she had the really big hat and everything else. He's like, I'm going to put you guys in and call you guys the Flying Nuns. So it was pretty cool. I mean, you know, you do what Vince says. He's the boss. Just like any other job that you go to, you do what your bosses say, period. So we did it, and oh my God, we had so much fun on the, you know, Shotgun Saturday Night was invented, you know, around that time, going into, you know, the nightclubs up there and doing matches in these little tiny rings and stuff like that. We were on the very first Shotgun Saturday Night, and we were the very first team to get a win, and we beat the Godwins. And that's when Brother Love introduced us as the Flying Nuns, Sisters of Love, whatever they wanted to call us. So it was something else. And then we did vignettes all over New York. We went to New York, the big giant church up in New York, and we're standing out there, and Vince is, you know, they told us go up to the church and act like you're praying and stuff like that. We're going to do a distance shot and everything else. We're in the back of a limo, the things up and everything else. So we don't know. So we go out, we're doing it down like this. And all we hear is ding, ding, church lets out. So we're standing there and we're like this. And here I got all the piercings. My nose is pierced. My beard's done. And, you know, Chaz was his piercings and everything else. Little old lady comes over, starts praying next to us. Then she looks up and she sees all the beard, and she starts flipping out. She starts hitting us with her purse and everything else. And then we look back at the limo, and then we see the front window come down. And Vince go, get in the car. And it just goes right back up.
Vince flew me up there, and I mean, you know, I didn't know what kind of gimmick. I mean, you know, first of all, I've been watching WWF, and I don't see anybody in wrestling tights except for Hulkster. everybody's, you know, big boss man. I mean, Undertaker. I mean, I'm seeing these guys and I'm going, holy shit, what am I going to be? Well, I killed 15 alligators in the first alligator harvest here in the state of Florida. When you're allowed to kill the first alligators, I got a license and I killed 15. So I had all this alligator shit. The reason I did that is because I was thinking about getting in the alligator farming business. And I was trying to learn that business because I saw the hides were very expensive and there was a lot of money in alligators. So I thought, well, you know, how do you do it? I went around to all alligator farms. Everybody was a wrestling mark. So, you know, I could go into the farms and they taught me all this stuff. I joined the Alligator Farmers Association. So when I go to Vince, I say, hey, I don't have a gimmick, but I just killed 15 alligators. And I laid out a hide off of a 12-footer on his desk, and I took this huge skull and a paw, and I said, can you do anything with this? And Vince just looked at me, you know, because we had crossed paths before when I'd fly up with Dusty out of Florida to work the gardens, but Vince was a mark. His dad wouldn't let him in the dressing room at that time. So we didn't really know each other that well.
Right.
But he has already been introduced to a lot of my friends that were guys on regionalized territories from all over the country. So he knew I was one of these guys. I mean, I didn't have no family ties to anybody, but I'd been around long enough that I'm none of these guys. Okay, so he says to me, he says, Steve, I want you to go home, let your beard grow out. Don't do that Fabulous One beard. So let your beard grow out, let your hair go back to natural, get rid of the bleach blonde hair, and give me about a month, and I'll bring you back up, and we'll see what we got. So he said, I'm gonna pay you, and I'm going, you gonna pay me to sit home? I love this business. I go home, work out, nothing unusual. Let my hair go back to brown. My beard grows really fast. I can grow a beard in 2 days. So that's one of the only good things, and only one of the things I'm good at is growing a beard. So I grew a beard quick. I come back up. Vince goes, we got it. And I said, what? And he goes, we got your character. And I said, okay. So I'm excited, right? So he says, did you see the movie Deliverance? And I'm looking at him and I'm going, yeah, man, at least 100 times. I mean, you know, I'm really sucking up the Vince. I got to admit, I was really sucking up. Yeah, I've seen it at least 100 times, Vince. That's a great movie. You know, like, shut up, Steve. Listen to what I'm going to tell you. Okay. So talk about wanting a job. Mr. Kevin Sullivan taught me to suck up some. So I wasn't good at that. It was obvious. So he said, well, we want you to be one of those guys. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, I got it. Because I'm so good looking as a Fabulous One, you're wanting me to be Burt Reynolds, right? You want me to get a vest, Vince? And do you want me to get a bow and arrow? I mean, you know, I'm coming up with all of these my idea things.
That's awesome.
And he looks at me and he said, no. You got the wrong guy. He said, you remember the two guys in the woods with Ned Beatty? And the one guy said, hey, boy, you got right pretty mouth. And I go,
sure do.
Yeah. He says, I want you to be one of those guys. And I'm going, holy shit. And I said, well, I'm cute. He goes, you're not going to be.
What were your interactions with Vince like about the character? Was he very hands-on with you?
Yeah, he was. It was his baby, and he rented out the Highland Ballroom in the beginning of 2013 or the end of 2012, and I went there, and the whole gimmick of not saying the name properly, that was the whole start of it. It was a shoot, so I did those promos. He, you know, cost him probably $75,000 to shoot those. And he didn't like the way I said Fandango or Fandango. So he, one day I'm just lifting in Atlanta before TV, and I got like 12 missed calls from the office, and they're like, why aren't you up in the concourse to shoot your vignettes with Vince? I'm like, what the fuck? Wow. So no one told me. Yeah, no one told me. So I ran over there, and Vince just had hip surgery at the time, and he's on like a crutch. And he's like, I'm like, listen, sir, no one told me we were shooting today. He's like, it's not your fault. I'm like, all right, fuck. So he produced it in person. So he wanted me to pronounce the name differently and be more flamboyant, I guess, and just more cocky. And it was his vision. So I guess him not being on site would have been difficult to produce, obviously, if he wasn't there. So it was cool to work that close with him. I wasn't super close with him prior to that. I wouldn't say I was super close with him during my run, but he's an intimidating guy. It's a guy that you look up to your whole life. It's your boss. He you never know what type of mood he's in, so you kind of keep it neutral. But it was fun.
Any interactions with Vince McMahon during your runs?
Oh yeah, a lot. Yeah, I spent almost 8 years with that company, so I've been around them a lot, so.
Any advice, like anything he told you that stuck in your head?
The main thing that stuck in my head is like, Jimmy, the last time you was a KO, I didn't let you talk because you're this Korean dude with a southern accent. This time I'm going to make a negative out of positive. I'm going to make you an Asian redneck. That's funny. And your name's going to be Wang Yang. Jimmy Wang Yang. That rhymes. And I was like, yeah, whatever. As long as that check comes every Monday, I do whatever you want. And
that's how he pitched it.
Yeah. And then, he paid me a lot of money for a few years. So it was like, it was great, so.
How did you end up coming back that time, though? Who was your in to come back?
So that time I was in Ring of Honor, and I wasn't expecting it back. So it's just, I know the story's been told a little bit lately, but but they had a pay-per-view in Lexington. And I was in Cincinnati. So at the time, I was talking to this really hot blonde chick, she was hot, and I was like, oh, so you want to go see WWE? I can get us some VIP treatment, and the whole, the working, whatever, but that's, I was like, oh, impress this girl. So I went down to Lexington, go backstage, and I'm really there to get tickets and try to, score with this chick, or girl. I was trying to score with this girl. And then me and Vince crossed paths, and he's like, Jimmy, where the hell you been? You fired me? What? I did. So, wait here. I'll be back and talk to you in a little bit. And then I'm still there trying to, get tickets and all that kind of stuff. And then they needed me in the ring. I said, hey, Jimmy, can we use you real quick? We need you to do a spot in the ring. I'm like, what? I'm not, whatever. I'm not here for that. But
wow.
Sure. But then I got to the ring, and that was a pay-per-view when Vince versus God.
Okay.
And then Shawn Michaels involved, and the Spirit Squad comes down, and they do their big bump to a table. Mm-hmm. And me and Shawn are like the same size, so they wanted to make Shawn feel comfortable. And Jimmy, you mind going through these 3 tables and get tossed up 20 feet in there? Man, what? I just want, yeah. I was, I'm just here just to get laid. That's a basic goal. Sure.
So you didn't work there. They have a whole locker room full of contracted talent, and they're asking you to go through 3 tables. That just sounds so freaking bizarre.
And that's what even Michael Hayes, right before we did it, the rehearsal, Michael told Vince, you think Jimmy should do it? He's not under contract. And he's like, he should be under contract. Let him do it. And it's like, and then they tossed me in there, went through the table, and said, hey, yeah, Shawn, it was actually easier going through the tables and taking the bump on the mat, So yeah, not too bad.
Right.
Oh, okay, cool.
What were your first impressions of meeting Vince McMahon?
A true gentleman, and I really mean that. I hear a lot of garbage talk about this man, and I think that until you walk in the moccasins of the person, until you're in that position, you really don't understand what it's all about, because it's a business. He was kind. He was generous. I remember John brought me into Boston. We were going to have dinner. And he said, you got to wear the Fabo tie. You got to do this. And I'm going, what for? We're going to go to dinner. And so he brings me in and we go get this table in the back, and who's there? Shane McMahon and his father. What a great human being. Both of them. Very kind and generous. And the more I got to know him, when I did the thing with Orton, I was traveling with John, and he would come at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I want that Scotch Johnny Walker Red. That's my thing. And so I think you have to understand that when you're in business, and we've both been in it, if you can't put asses in seats, and I have no place for you, then I'm better off letting you go and do your own thing. Fans, I don't think really understand what this business is all about. And they think he's a hard ass, he's this and he's that, but I can tell you, very generous, very kind, takes the business very seriously, and does, regardless of what people say, takes very good care of his talent.
Now, why do you think they didn't give you the tag belts? Was there ever a reason, or they just...
Well, Vince didn't like us, period.
Okay.
He didn't like us. And Brian still differs in opinion on that, but I know he never did. He never did like us. And the fact that we were both, friends of Terry Hulk, I think he sort of took care of us a little bit, but never, we never were, given the belts, and we would have had a hell of a run, because we could have turned heel with those masks and presented a different, a totally different scenario going into matches. But you can't fight City Hall, and I know Brian was just really, really disappointed, as I was too.
What do you think of what's going on right now with the World Wrestling Federation, or WWE, I should say, and Vince McMahon and all the scandals? Like, what is your opinion on this?
Well, it's just like the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire goes so far, and then all of a sudden, boom, and down it goes. And that happens with it's cyclical. And the fact that, Vince, who, is a billionaire and had, a lot of different incidents that sort of chipped away at what he was doing. And I just think now that more or less that the word's out about this and his infidelities, this and that. And then I find out he's divorced from Linda, and, and then Hunter Helmsley needs a new heart, and it's just that. So I asked Hulk a long time ago about Vince. I said, what's going on? I said, is he capable of this? And you know what he told me? He said Vince is capable of anything and everything. That's what he said, and then walked away. See, Vince tried to rub it in on me. I needed to work, like I told you, Mike, because I needed money to complement the gym. So I knew, and he had me doing jobs on TV, and then he had me on the road, and I it hurt me immensely, but I thought, well, hey, I need the money. And I'll never forget, and you can look this on TV, it's on there. It's Randy Savage and I, when he had, what's her name? It wasn't Elizabeth, it was
Sherry.
Yeah.
You hit him with a drop kick, right?
In his mouth. Yeah. And he spit blood, and I thought, oh God, I knocked his teeth out. But we had a hell of a match. And after we got done with the match, walked through, and it was, I think it might have been on a Monday Raw or something. I don't know if they called it that or what. But Vince is standing there, and he said, gentlemen, he said, that's the best TV match I've ever seen. That's what he said. So it made me feel good, but who knows? He might have said that, 20 times to different people, but we did have a good match. And as independent contractors, and this, Mike, never know what you're going to get paid. You're at the mercy of, the promoter. And I remember one time I told Vince, I said, Vince, I says, Christ, I said, last month I was making $4,000 a week. I made 20 grand or 16 grand for the month. And I said, this next month, I said, the houses were bigger, and I wound up making, half of that. And I says, how do you, clarify that and justify that? And he says, oh, I guess I'll have to talk to my accountants next, and then that was it.
You're still waiting for the explanation, I bet, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Vince McMahon.
He's the reason we all wanted to do this. Both you and I, I think probably fell in love with. I know you were in a fair carnival show, mud wrestling, but I was kind of into WWF.
Oil wrestling. Oil wrestling.
But dude, you can't take away what he did. I just think it was time for a change. And I think we're seeing that now, and I'll always be thankful for what he did for me and the platform he gave me to create the name and do what I do and do what I love. But I think, it was time to go, and like I said, I think we're starting to see that.
I wrote out the idea and I proposed a picture to Vince McMahon of Mike Tyson and his former trainer, Cuss. And I put a picture of Bob Backlund and me next to one another. So I had it all written out. And again, like I said earlier, the one thing I learned about Titus is closed mouths don't get fed. So I approached Vince McMahon with the idea after Titus and I were done teaming. I approached it to Vince McMahon. I talked to him for about 20 minutes. A lot of what we talked about, Vince McMahon and I, was yoga, because he asked me, how do you get such a big barrel chest like that? I said, yoga, He said, really? I said, yeah, because it fixes your posture. So my chest might appear bigger, but it's just how I carry myself, my posture. So we talked about that, and I proposed the Bob Backlund and Darren Young angle, and Vince McMahon loved it. And he contacted Bob Backlund personally, and we started running with the idea. So I have nothing bad to say about Vince McMahon at all, because he gave me that opportunity. You know what I mean? And that's all I ever wanted, was an opportunity. It's just, I always say it's unfortunate that the people that work under Vince McMahon didn't have my back, because, again, back in the day, it was maybe just Pat Patterson and one other person. But now there are so many producers that if it's not their idea, they might not run with it. So it's just, it's just how you play the game. It's how you play your cards, Ace. I'm sure you'll hear that a lot in the podcasts that you do. Other people's experiences, again, mine have all been positive. I do speak the truth on some, anything that comes up, because speaking from the heart works best for me. But that's my experience.
Tell me about your interactions with Vince McMahon. He's in the news a lot right now, so it's very topical.
Yeah. So it's funny, when we were there, Vince was always good to us. We used to, because like I said, we lived like 2 hours from Stamford, from headquarters, Titan Towers. And Glenn and I, on a Thursday or Friday, we had nothing to do. We were like, oh, let's drive up to the office and hang out, to the point where we had our own HID magnetic key card to get in and out of the office whenever we wanted. I mean, we had full carte blanche. We could just walk in, we zap the thing, and it's like we were there all the time. We would go into Vince's office and sit down and talk to Beth, his receptionist at the time. And then one time we went in and totally rearranged his office, rearranged the whole thing, and then just left. And the next week at TV, he knew it was us. Like, he was laughing about it. There was another time we were in his office up there, and I was sitting behind his desk, and he came in and he sat on the other side, like never even said a word about me being on his side of the desk or anything like that. Always had that good joking relationship with him, even to the point when the night we won the belts, I walked up to him the next night at Raw and I thanked him. I was like, he goes, you guys have earned it. You guys do a great job for us. You're like, nope, enjoy it, blah, 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 blah. But as soon as I wasn't getting re-signed and they were done with me, he was done with me. And at first I was a little bitter / salty about it, because I tried calling him once I had the conversation with JR of, well, we don't know who Chaz is. And I'm like, he's given me 8 different gimmicks in the last 6 months. So I don't know who I am either. But when I knew I wasn't coming back or getting re-signed, I called Vince a couple times. Wouldn't get on the phone, nothing. Beth acted like she didn't know who I was. So it took me a while to realize what it was Vince. It's nothing's personal. It's all business with him, which I guess with him and the way he is and everything he's done, he's got to be that way. He had to be that way. I mean, at least with the guys. I can't know about the girls, but at least the guys. So that, to me, that's just how he was. And after a while, with me moving on out of wrestling and moving full-time gig of doing business like I do now, and running an office and a branch and having people underneath of me, it taught me that you can't take anything personal. You can't let the personal stuff slide in. It's got to be about business to make it successful. And that's how Vince is. Vince is just business.
Can you talk about what's going on right now with Vince?
Here's the worst part. I don't really keep up with it. So the bits and pieces and tidbits I know is stuff you know, if I'm scrolling through Twitter or Instagram, you see something, or I have friends that watch who'll be like, hey, so did you hear about this, or did you see about that? I mean, I guess my opinion is with him retiring, it's very convenient that he's retiring now. Is that because of everything that's going on and he just kind of wants to go off in the sunset, or is he just going to sit in the back quietly pulling strings? I don't know. But I mean, he's older. The last time I saw him in the ring, when I did see him get in, because they said I heard commercials and I saw it on Twitter and he was going to be on. I'm like, all right, let me watch, because every now and then I will jump in. I just don't follow it every week. But when he was getting out of the ring and he almost fell, I was like, oh, I'm like, come on, like, enough. Like, at least if you're going to do something, stay in the back. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, for me, the opportunity he gave me and the different things he did for me have been awesome. And without him, I could have never got to where I did. I could not even got to where I am or what I did, but have the opportunity to do it. I just wish him the best, and you know, just hope he just rides off into the sunset and just retires and relaxes and enjoys, you know, whatever it is he wants to do.
Well, Vince McMahon is in the news a lot right now. What was your interactions being a diva in the WWE? What were your interactions with Vince McMahon like?
Vince was great. I mean, I didn't see him close up a lot at all. But when I did see him, he was always very kind and nice. And I did go to him once and just kind of said, hey, like, I just want to be on the same page. Like, you know, is there anything that you need more from me? And, you know, I had taken the initiative to go in there by myself about myself, you know, and just wanted to make sure, because this was at the time that the competition, the diva competition, was taken off. And he opened door, you know, let me talk to me, he's a busy man, gave me some time. And he said that I was doing great. And, you know, they had plans for me, and, you know, there was nothing else at the time that they thought, but he appreciated me coming to talk to him, and, you know, very kind. And Fit had always told me that what really got me over with Vince was my facials. So I prided myself on my facials, because I just remember watching wrestling growing up, like how I recognize that when in wrestling matches, like your facials really make a difference when you're selling something. And even if it isn't necessarily a wrestling move, like for me as that manager, valet, Cherry, like for me to, you know, make those faces like, ooh, Batista likes me, or, oh my God, you know, it's like, you have to over exaggerate that. And Vince was big into that. And Fit always pointed that out. So Vince never told me himself, but, you know, Fit's like great. So I totally believe that. So, and I always was prided on that, you know, making sure that you get that part over. So yeah, he was good to me. I mean, I hate that's going on. I think he's built an empire. This business is incredible. And I hate that might be the legacy that goes along with it. So hopefully things will clear up, but not that WWE's going away, you know, obviously Stephanie and Hunter are going to, you know, take it further, which is great because I think you have so much of a universe, right? That people like really look out for wrestling. I just hate to think that that's really the situation because, you know, you worked so hard and made a legendary empire. I mean, I can't explain it and describe it any more than that. To have it go out like that, that's upsetting. So, but who knows?
What are your thoughts on Vince McMahon?
Well, you know, who signs my check is whose praise I sing. You've ever heard that expression?
I did now. I love it.
Okay, he's not signing any more checks for me, but the money he gave me continues to accrue interest. So I am very in favor of Vince McMahon. He's an excellent man. The truth is, I wish I were more like him. But since I can't be like him, at least I can like him. Okay? I've never seen him yawning. I've never seen any scuzz on his shoes. And I've never seen him in need of dental floss. The guy is meticulous. Do you understand me? And I don't knock success. And some people do. I think that's very sad. Vince McMahon is a very successful man. And, you know, a lot of people were rooting against him, including, you know, billionaire Ted and the United States court, you know, whatever. I wish him a happy final gliding path of life. And I want to say, if you're listening, thank you for doing that for my brother, Elizabeth, and myself. I am very, very appreciative. And I'll have you know that my life is good and better because of him.
You're exposed to the wrestling business behind the scenes in the big time. You see a lot of things and you witness things and you see things and you're like, okay, do you speak about it or do you keep your mouth shut? The culture is what happens with the boys stays with the boys. I saw a lot of things with John Laurinaitis. I saw things with Vince McMahon. I saw a lot of things with the writers, how they treated people, how they acknowledged people, how they interacted with people, how I was interacted with during the dress. All I could say, guys, and I speak for this this is real life. Guys, if it was your daughter and somebody did the stuff that they talk about to your daughter, what would you do? Mike, you have a beautiful family. You have two beautiful daughters, and somebody was to harass or do something to your daughters. You're not a physical guy. You're not a violent guy, but you're going to stand up, you know, and you think about it. It's the same thing when you're a victim of something and you've been harassed and humiliated and you're treated a certain way, guys. You just take it as it comes. You don't say much. You don't give everything out. You just wait and you sit for the right moment when you're asked to present something. It's the best way I can explain it.
Before we go, can you talk to me about any personal interaction you've had with Vince McMahon, any Vince stories one-on-one, or even talk about the current stuff going on with Vince?
Well, I've never seen anything like what, you know, is coming out about the NDAs. I've never seen anything, you know, outside of the boisterous type of, you know, like he acts like a college frat brother or something, you know what I mean? Very, very alpha male type stuff. Nothing that I, you know, but I never, like the thing about, I would see Vince or talk to Vince in certain situations when it was mostly all positive, where he would give me, I mean, obviously sometimes in Gorilla, he would just give me the death stare because I did something he didn't want me to do or left something out. But Vince, to his credit, there was one time in a meeting, I had a match with Bob Holly on Velocity, and we told a hell of a story. And that's credit to Bob with the kind of worker that he doesn't get credit for being. Worked the leg, worked his leg. And then we had a second match where I just worked his back. He finally tried to, he couldn't get me, you know, we kept working back to the Alabama Slam. Finally got it, pay me. Vince, during a talent meeting, which I wasn't even there for some, I think they took me out of it just so I don't know why. I wasn't in the talent meeting. Bob was. And Vince brought a TV in and played the match.
Wow.
You got the whole roster there. And he goes, these are the stories that I want told on my shows. This kind of story. Look at these guys work, blah, blah, blah. It's like, what do you do, you know, after that? So, I mean, that's kind of like, it wasn't a personal interaction, but it's probably one of those ones. And like I said, I give all the credit to Bob with that for being a guy that sold and the babyface made the heel actually have heat and fight from underneath and make the match. When I was training Shane McMahon, Dreamer and I were training him for his match against Shawn Michaels, Saturday night's main event. We would go down the tracks and train him. Vince showed up a couple times and wanted us to kill Shane. Kill him. He was cheering for us to beat his son up.
Got it. What was your interactions with Vince McMahon like?
He signed the front of the checks. I signed the back.
That's it, huh?
Nah, I actually had good interactions with Vince, but Vince is a businessman. And, you know, I mean, and, you know, I respect the fact that Vince, as long as you're making him money, he's happy with you. The minute that, you know, he doesn't see you as an asset anymore, you know, they're going to let you go. And the wrestling business is a tough business in that aspect. I had great interactions with him. He would, you know, but they were always, I don't want to say friendly. They were always business encouraging. You know, he would stop me and, you know, hey, when you're over in Australia, you know, try to get your gimmick off, try to, you know, just shit like that. You know, but again, what I'll say, the night my mom died, Vince called me. The night, not the day after, the week after, the night my mom died, Vince called me. So, I mean, you can say what you want about anybody, but you know, you find out who really cares about you during adversity in life. I know that much, and he was there. So, I mean, other than that, you know, I mean, I know Vince. I know Vince is you know under a little hot water now with everything, but I always had great interactions with him.
Last thing I want to talk about, any interactions with Vince McMahon, and what's your feeling on the current situation with Vince McMahon?
My dealings with Vince were brief, but like Vince was there, man. Vince was a worker, bro. Like he was at ringside. He was going over his show. It was his baby. I could tell you one conversation I had with Vince was right before I wrestled with Van Dam. At the end of the match, I was going to get hit by Hardcore Holly. He was going to give me a chair shot. And he goes, make sure you put your hand up. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. And he just kind of looked at me like it was somewhere between, are you kidding me? Or are you talking back to me? Or are you just stupid? It was like one of those. I was like, I've never put my hand up ever on a chair shot. I'm not going to start now. And he's like, God damn it. I say, put your hand up. You put your hand up. Guess we're going to put our hand up tonight. You know what I mean? Yeah. Glad I did, because man, because Bob swung it. And I was like, I didn't tell anybody, but I was like this, and my hand was like, but I was like, but back, I was just like, what's up? Let's do it again. But yeah, I mean, it was like, my interactions with Vince were very few and far between, but like very always, like he was like, he didn't treat you like where you are in the card, or where, to me personally, anyway, I don't know. And I always admired that about him. I thought he was very cool and personable and approachable. Which a lot of, you know, I always maintain like the Chappelle thing where you saw Rick James, you could see his aura. Like I always saw that you can like came in the room, like it was just different. It was like but I all my dealings with him personally, even like as rare as they were always very positive. As far as what's happening now, I don't know. Like I, you know, who doesn't have some kind of skeleton in their closet that's a multi-billionaire or something? I'm not saying, you know, I'm just saying I don't know that. I don't know that I'm surprised that's happening. Like I think a lot of people were shocked by it. I don't know that that's a word I would use, shocked by it. I don't think I'm surprised by anything in the wrestling business at this point. Who would be? Anybody that's been in the business for more than 10 years shouldn't be really shocked at anything. I mean, you know, there's examples to the contrary, but I don't think this far, like, you know, Benoit, shocking. I don't think that Vince having a extracurricular or extramarital affair is really over the top shocking. Not to me anyway. I don't condone it, but I'm not necessarily like blown away. Like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming. Shocked by it either.